Welcome back to Big Country Politics on KTAB.
Well, welcome to this week's Sunday Conversation featuring our one and only District 19 U.S. House Representative, Jodey Arrington. Mr. Arrington, it's been quite some time. Thanks for making time for us today.
Oh, you bet. It's great to be back in God's country. Good to be with you as always. And I'm honored and excited that on behalf of West Texas, we're working 24/7 to change course, to reverse the damage that's been done and the disastrous policies of the last 4 years. And the future is looking better and brighter for America. And I'm thankful to the American people who gave us unified Republican leadership.
Well, President Donald Trump is making some waves in his first month and change in office. How would you describe the first 30 plus days?
I would say unprecedented pace. I don't think we've ever seen the launching of a new administration like this. He is off like a rocket ship to reverse, again, the disastrous policies and effects of the last administration and to advance the America First agenda. And the first part of that is to declare a national emergency and to lock the border down. We've seen the numbers go from about 20,000 a day to under 1,000. We've basically got operational control of the border within like days because this president prioritizes the American people. In addition, we're working on things to open up American energy after the 4-year regulatory assault on an industry that is the lifeblood of our economy. And then, of course, I'm working on the budget resolution, which is the vehicle that will have the preponderance of policies for the America First agenda, including locking in low tax cuts, making sure that we open up domestic energy production, rein in the regulatory state, and then cut spending so that we can actually restore fiscal health, stave off a debt crisis, and make sure that we can make America not only safe, but prosperous again.
We'll get to those cuts in, certainly with the budget resolution, but let's talk your priorities for the 119th Congress. Give me the Cliff's Notes and what's on the top of your list and where do they stand with President Trump?
Well, the top of the list is securing the border and strengthening our military like the airmen at Dias, our men and women in uniform who fight for our freedom to protect our homeland. They do the most important and most dangerous job on behalf of the American people. So that's job number one. And I want to make sure President Trump has the resources. We have a commander-in-chief now that has the will to do the things necessary. I think we're already seeing the restoration of America's respect on the world stage. Secondly, I would say we need to restore law and order across the land, make sure people feel safe in their own homes, in their own neighborhoods, and on the streets of our once great American cities. And then lastly, we've got to unleash economic growth. We've been on high center at best. All the spending, all the paying people not to work, the taxes and regulations have been a beatdown on the greatest economy in the world. So we have to untangle this. And we have to reignite economic growth and bring down spending. If we do both of those, I think we're going to see, again, greater opportunities for our fellow Americans, better quality of life, bigger paychecks, and a prosperity economy that we're all longing for after 40-year high inflation and an economy and a debt position as a country that's very dangerous.
Last week, Congressman, your committee approved the 2025 budget concurrent resolution outlining a framework to cut approximately $2 trillion. The resolution passed in committee. Before discussing specific programs, how will this impact resources for the Trump administration?
Well, it's, first of all, this is the most we've ever reduced in spending in the history of our country. But then again, we now have $36 trillion in debt, which is more indebtedness relative to economic output than we've ever had, surpassing World War II. So just reducing the deficit will probably take away the biggest drag on the economy. But the president needs resources to implement his border security agenda, the detention and deportation of criminal aliens. And that's exactly what we intend to do. That's built into the budget resolution. And then the resources necessary to make sure that our military, our sons and daughters, have what they need, the tools and resources to be successful on the battlefield in doing that most important job.
Congressman, some of the biggest cuts, if you will, were made to education and workforce, energy and commerce, and in agriculture. Tell us, when it comes to these cuts, how did y'all arrive to those particular things in that way for those avenues there?
Well, actually, we've basically put out top line numbers on what we expect each of the committees of jurisdiction to find in terms of spending reductions. But I'm not giving them the specifics. They write those policies. Each committee will write those policies. We'll roll them back up to the budget committee. I have provided examples of reforms that will have savings. For example, if you have a work requirement for able-bodied adults in Medicaid, like we have in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program or food stamps, will not only prevent people from being trapped in poverty and government dependence, but will also save taxpayers some $120+ billion. And there's a long list of things like that. For example, those folks receiving the cash welfare program or benefits of the child tax credit, if parents have to show a Social Security number, then you will prevent people who are here illegally from benefiting from those services. That saves $25 billion. There is a system-wide government of the United States of America that is fraught with waste, abuse, improper payments, fraud, and we've got to root all of that out, not just because we're stewards of tax dollars, but also because we're borrowing $6 billion a day, and we are teetering on a debt crisis, and it's immoral to hand our country in the shape that it's in financially to our children and grandchildren.
Alrighty, we're going to step aside for a quick commercial break. When we come back, more on the future of a local program like Meals on Wheels and a bill to protect the future of oil and gas. That more when we come back.
Welcome back to Big Country Politics on KTAB.
Well, welcome back to the Sunday Conversation. This week our special guest is District 19 U.S. House Representative hailing from Lubbock, Texas, Mr. Jodey Arrington. Congressman.
Guns up.
Yes, guns up indeed. I'll put those up with you. Yes. We were talking about the budget concurrent resolution in the first segment. Let's unpack a few more things. Locally, we've heard from the Meals on Wheels in Abilene that it's facing a $1.9 million budget cut. Meals on Wheels Executive Director Betty Bradley warned it could be eliminated entirely, potentially leaving more than half of those who rely on daily meals without the service. Tell me, what can you tell us about this Meals on Wheels program?
Well, I can just say that the Meals on Wheels program and any program in this country that receives federal dollars is going to have the same scrutiny that every single program and every single federal tax dollar is going to get and should have. We're long overdue, quite frankly, Manny, for a tip-to-tail, top-to-bottom assessment of this federal government and where the money's going, how it's being spent, and nobody gets a pass on it. That doesn't mean that Meals on Wheels will be cut. It just means that everybody must have the same level of scrutiny to ensure tax dollars are being spent wisely and to make sure that when we look to rein in the spending that is unnecessary, that is reckless, that is fraudulent, and to make sure that we right scope and right scale the federal government, that everything's on the table. But there are no cuts in place today. That I have a list of things that we could do that would save money, but those are things that are being considered at the committee level. And that is what's going to happen now that we've passed the budget resolution out of my committee. Now the Financial Services Committee that oversees the Social Service Block Grant Program and Energy and Commerce that oversees Medicaid, they will look at these programs. They will make sure that the tax dollars are well spent. They will root out the waste and fraud. They will make sure that inefficiencies will be dealt with. so that we can save money, bring down our debt, and make sure that the beneficiaries who we intended to receive these services are the ones benefiting, not fraudsters and not some bureaucrat that doesn't know how to manage his way out of a paper sack. That's important.
Congressman, earlier this month, you issued safeguards for the future of oil and gas production with the Protecting American Energy Act, legislation to prohibit any federal moratorium on fracking and ensure states have primacy over energy production on state and private land. Can you give us the nuts and bolts in this, perhaps the Cliff's Notes, and what it means for West Texas?
Well, West Texas is ground zero for producing the fuel that runs this great economy of ours, the best in the world. It's not only that, but it keeps consumers' costs low. We've seen just how much we depend on the ocean of natural gas that was discovered in the shale revolution because of fracking. And what's at risk when you have an administration come in that's very hostile to conventional fuels? We saw a whole of government regulatory assault on the oil and gas industry for 4 years, and it's wreaked havoc on our economy, for small businesses and manufacturers, and on our families who have to put gas in their car to go to and from work and to heat and cool their homes. So we're putting in place basically a preventative of ever having a ban on something that is so critical, not just to our economy and our lifestyle, but to national security, because energy independence is national security. And we're doing many other things. Ted Cruz and I are working to also repeal Biden's moratorium on 600 million acres worth of offshore drilling. I mean, the list is long because we've seen an extreme climate agenda thrust on this country, and it's weakened us, it's made us more vulnerable, and it's made the expenses for every family and working person in this country unsustainable.